Everything you thought became true. Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shamini Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschachara Satharine. So nice to be here after a year and a half or 2 years, 2.5 or something. And a lot of times on Sundays, I like to take questions rather than speak on the topic. This weekend, we spoke on the topic of finding your dharma, your calling. Spent a day and a half on that. Very interesting. Some of you were there for some of it or part of it, and we could talk about that if you have questions or questions about anything. And if we don't have any questions, we'll just do kirtan. Yes?
Hare Krishna. Why do you feel sometimes, for myself only,
Yes.
sometimes Krishna consciousness very dry?
Oh.
Like in the,
Sometimes, not all the time.
no, sometimes.
Yeah. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says we're influenced by 3 modes of nature. And you ever, like sometimes you have a realization or you have an inspiration, and you kind of think that's going to be that way forever. And then maybe 2 weeks later you can't remember what that realization was. It's strange, isn't it? Because you would think if I realized it, how could I forget it? It's like, how could I forget my name? How could I forget my mother? But what's happening is that we are in different environments, and also our activities are changing and our thinking is changing. So we're under the influence of different modes of nature. And so sometimes there's more spiritual influence in your life, and so you're more inspired. Sometimes there's more material influence, which could come from outside or could come from inside, or could come from the way you're processing what's outside. So maybe this week things are exactly the same as they were last week, but last week you processed them better, or your chanting was better, or you were reading more, or thinking, and feeling in a more Krishna conscious way. So the same thing didn't really affect you. And this week you didn't do it so well, and now the influence of those modes, which may be passion or ignorance, now they're affecting you. And so, to live a Krishna conscious life, we want to live, it's a lifestyle which enables us to be a little bit beyond the effects that normally affect us. Then that's when you're steady. So it's kind of like, it's raining out, but you're under a tunnel, so you don't get wet. But sometimes we go out of the tunnel and we get wet and we wonder, why am I getting wet now? I didn't get wet yesterday when it was raining. Oh, because you had some protection. Also, just the nature of life and how things change. Krishna says the modes are just naturally changing. So sometimes, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but like some days everybody's angry or everybody's depressed. Have you ever noticed that? And some days everybody's in a good mood. So there are astrological influences also that are affecting. Now they affect a Krishna conscious person less or not at all. So these things are changing. It could be astrological influences you're going through that are affecting you, certain transitions of planets. But if you're more Krishna conscious, you're less affected. If you're less Krishna conscious, less transcendental, you're more affected. But I would suggest that if you notice the changes, either good or bad, try to go back and say, did I do anything different? Or even think anything different? Or eat anything different? Or see anything different? Or listen to anything different? Because whatever goes through our senses is going into our consciousness. Right? So just hearing, thinking, seeing, reading is affecting us. Just like if we all went out in the country, we'd feel a little different than we feel here. It's a different environment. It's more sattvic goodness. But when you're more spiritually advanced, you're in that consciousness all the time. And when we're not, or we're weaker, we're getting influenced. Or you meet a person and their vibration is really low, and you get affected. You say, I don't feel good now. Or vice versa. You meet someone and they're very spiritually advanced and you feel very inspired. Also, the trick is, let's say if we just use the idea that things just naturally change, and at 8 o'clock I'm happy, and at 1 o'clock I'm depressed. And it's like I didn't do anything. It's just blood sugar or whatever. I'm hungry, or I get angry when I'm hungry. So that can be, those can be factors. Your mother's sick in the hospital back in India, and that's disturbing you. And so it's on your mind, maybe subconsciously. So the thing is, if you become more Krishna conscious, you become less affected by these things. That's the idea. Sometimes the effects are there, you can't change it. You're going through an astrological period, it's just the effect is there, but if you're more Krishna conscious, it'll have less effect. If you're less Krishna conscious, it'll have more effect. And if you're completely Krishna conscious, you won't be affected by anything material. You'll be transcendental. So, up and down is the world of duality. We're in that world, and until we transcend that world, just got a message. It said, am I broadcasting? You checking?
Yeah, it is live. It's watching. Just in case I put the charger inside.
Does that make sense? I mean, the real thing is how not to be affected by things we can't control. There's so many things we can't control. And sometimes just your mood changes. So you don't even know why. It's like you're, according to your nature, mornings you're happy and afternoons you're not. Like, I don't like afternoon. I love morning. When afternoon comes, I'm just like, I don't like this. Go away, afternoon. It's just like everything's like slow and tired and morning, come back. So, but then if you're more evolved, then you're less affected by that. Those are natural things that will affect us. Right? And in terms of your spiritual bliss and your spiritual realization, you'll get those when you're doing better in your spiritual life. That's when they come. And so let's say you're getting a lot of realization, you were chanting a lot, or you're reading a lot, or you went to India, went to a holy place, or some advanced devotee came, you got their association. There's this energy coming to you. And so now you're getting all kinds of realizations. If you don't keep up that level of energy, you won't get the same level of realization, and you might even forget those realizations. That's the misfortune of being a conditioned soul. You always, it's kind of like you're in an incubator. And, you're fine when you're incubated, but when you get out, your immune system is weak, you're so susceptible. Say, I was doing fine in incubator, why am I sick when I got out of the incubator? Yeah, because we're spiritually weak, so we get affected. Somebody says something we don't like, we get very affected. We're in a bad mood, we don't chant properly. Or we don't chant at all. I'm not going to chant today, I'm in a bad mood. So we're getting affected by our mood, by our mind, by our emotions. And then they're controlling us instead of us controlling them. Right? So when you're more in control, then you can govern your life more, and you can stay in a more spiritual environment. You can create a more spiritual environment internally and externally, and then you'll be more stable. And then one day you'll transcend, and then you'll always be above the influence of the modes. So you won't go up and down anymore. The whole chapter, second chapter of the Gita, talks about duality. This is the world of duality. Hot, cold, good, bad, pain, pleasure, honor, dishonor. In the second chapter, Krishna is telling Arjuna, be transcendental to it, because good, honor will come, defamation will come, good will come, bad will come, and heat will come, cold will come. And if we're being pushed around by the dualities, we won't have any stability in our lives or our consciousness. And Krishna says you won't be able to become Krishna conscious if you're affected by everything. So that's why he tells Arjuna, just be stable. And then he tells Arjuna, even when things are good, don't become so happy when it's good, because they're not going to stay that way. And if you're not so elated when it's good, you won't be so depressed when it's not good. But if you're extremely elated when things are good, you'll be extremely depressed when it's bad. Isn't that interesting? Because like, who's going to tell you when something is good, don't become happy? No one's going to tell you that, except Krishna. It makes sense. Okay, when things are bad, don't get depressed. That totally makes sense, right? But when things are good, don't get too happy. That doesn't make sense. But the point is, it's a duality, and so you're getting thrown off by the happiness, and when it's not there, you're not happy anymore. You were so happy yesterday. What happened? Oh, I got free donuts yesterday. That's why I was happy. Today, I got a ticket, so I'm not happy. Right? Isn't it? So Krishna's saying, don't become so elated when things are good, then you won't become so upset when things aren't good. Right? So if you read the second chapter of the Gita, it's all dedicated to telling Arjuna, just be stable. Because Arjuna he's really upset. He doesn't want to fight. And so Krishna's talking about equanimity as a basis for your spiritual practice. And if we look at our lives, we can see that if we're getting thrown around by situations, it's not a good sign. We're very unstable, materially and spiritually. I mean, the world will try to throw us around, but it's not good for your spiritual life. If you're disturbed, if you're overly disturbed or overly happy materially, it's not good for your spiritual life. Both are bad. Okay, the message for today's class is don't be too happy. Unless it's spiritual happiness. Then it's okay. Spiritual bliss is fine. But material happiness is, things are really good. I remember one time things were so good, I was a kid, maybe 12. I can't remember even how old I was. Maybe 10, 12, 11. Things were really good. It's Easter vacation. I was having a beautiful time. Riding my bike all over the city with my friends. And I remember Sunday night, I had to go back to school, and that week was so good that Sunday night was painful. If that week wasn't so good, Sunday night wouldn't have been so painful. I might have felt like, oh, I'm glad to go back to school. This week was horrible, right? So the pleasure of that week, that Easter week, became painful on Sunday night. So that's the nature of this world. It's like, you would think, okay, let's try to avoid suffering. Let's try to avoid misery. That just makes sense. But you don't realize if you get everything the way you want it and it's really good, you're really going to get upset when it changes, and it will change. It has to at some point, right? You can't just be that way all the time. And it could be that way a long time. And you might say, well, I've kept it that way all my life. All right, but still somebody's going to die or you're going to die. That's going to be difficult. It's easier to die if you don't like the way things are. That's why Trump becoming president was really helping us spiritually, because now we're like, I could just die now, it would be okay. Then I don't have to live in America and all the crazy things going on. So sometimes when things are difficult, it's actually better than when they're good, because you become a little more detached. When things get too good, you get too attached, and then when it changes, which it will, it's hard to deal with it. We don't want things to go bad, but sometimes it actually helps us become a little detached. Yes. I went to South Africa in 1981. And in South Africa, the white people were living in heaven. They had, basically prisoned the black people. So the black people had all the low-paying jobs, if they even had a job. And they were household servants and gardeners. You give them five rand, which is like 6-7 euros a day, and they'd work for you. And because the labor was so cheap, the businesses were profiting. Cheap labor, big profit. And their life was so easy. And many of the white South African people were interested in spiritual life, but they couldn't do it because their life was too good. They couldn't renounce enough. They couldn't detach enough. They couldn't do the austerities. They just weren't used to it. Their lives were too easy. Isn't that interesting? So we all want to be happy. We all want to have a good life. And that situation, that happiness and good life, made it very difficult for them The practice, like, why do I need to chant Hare Krishna? Everything's fine. You walk around this city, you have more reasons to chant Hare Krishna than you did in South Africa in 1981. You didn't have a lot of good reasons. Beautiful beaches, nice weather, tons of money. That place was floating in gold and diamonds, and they called the African labor, the black African, they called it black gold because they would work so cheaply. So the black people had all the manual, had all the hard jobs, manual labor. The white people didn't have those jobs. Mostly better jobs, business owners. Business was booming everywhere. Everyone had a lot of money. They found it really hard to take up spiritual life. So it was kind of like a curse. Their happiness became a curse. Interesting, isn't it? Right after that, I went to London. You know what your winters are like, right? It gets light, late, like 8, next month or two. At least in London, it gets light, like 8 o'clock, dark at 3:30. Economy was bad. It was depressing. So many people were becoming devotees. There was no money, weather was bad, nothing was good. You just can't believe that. In some time in the past, 100 people a year were moving in the ashram. 100 a year. And you think, well, didn't they have a life? Why are they? No, none of them were working. Jobs they didn't have to work. The government would give money, give you like £400. You give you enough money to live if you didn't work. And sometimes you couldn't make any more money by working. So they were just loitering here and there and not really happy. And they became devotees. They knew that something would be better. Isn't that interesting? So if you took those same people, put them in South Africa, maybe they wouldn't become devotees. The same South Africans, put them in London, maybe they would. So that's why we don't want to be so much affected by our environment. Because sometimes if things are too good or too bad, it's hard to practice spiritual. If it's too bad, we're just worried about living. Or we're suffering too much too.
So basically, a balance is important.
Yes.
If we are materially very low, then it is difficult to do the spirituality at the same time.
Can be, yes. Can be. Not always, but sometimes. And if we're materially too well off, sometimes we won't think that we need it. Everything's fine. Why do I need to add anything? Everything's good. Usually, in the times when things aren't good, you start asking, why aren't they good? Why did God create this? And so you ask questions. But when things are really good, you don't usually ask those questions. Unless you're a very philosophical person and you're inquiring. Like George Harrison, he obviously very wealthy, successful, but he was asking those questions. That was his nature. So it had a good effect on him. That fame and wealth didn't really deter him because he was looking for something. But for most people, it does. So, be beyond duality. Then you'll be steady. What does Krishna say? One who's steady in happiness and sadness, success and failure, etc. Then he's now situated where he can become self-realized. He's in the right position. Otherwise, if every day I see you, one day happy, one day sad, I'm like, what's wrong with you? I don't want to chant anymore. It's so bad. I don't believe in Krishna. And then you win the lottery. Oh, Krishna's so kind. I'm glad, he gave me this money.
I have a question.
Yes.
Maybe it's a deep question, but I would like to know what's the Hare Krishna take on narcissistic personality disorder, which is so rampant today. And is it really?
I don't know if we have a specific opinion on it, but I could speak in general about empathy because narcissistic personality disorders mean you don't feel what another person feels. Right? You mistreat them because you can't empathize with another person. And at least from the spiritual perspective, I can't speak clinically about it, I could speak philosophically. From the spiritual perspective, empathy and compassion is one of the highest qualities. If you evolve spiritually, empathy and compassion develop. But narcissism from what I understand, is a defect in the brain that doesn't allow people to feel and causes them to use other people for their own self-interest. I've never done any research on how cultivating compassion could deal with that. It may be like it's just the way the brain is wired, and it could help it. But you could say that materialism is kind of a narcissism, because you're out there shopping, and what are you thinking about? They have these in America. Do you have Black Friday here?
Yes. Just
had it, yeah. So I don't know about your country, but in our country, people will line up the night before because they read all what the deals are. You get this big TV for like half or a third the price, and that's what they wanted, and they could never afford it. Now they can afford it. And we've seen pictures. I've never done shopping that day, but we've seen pictures. People fighting. They go in and they're fighting, pulling. There's only like 10 TVs left, and they're getting and fighting. Sometimes you see people punching one another. So materialism is a kind of a narcissism. I want this for myself. I don't care if you don't get it, as long as I get it. So obviously that's not spiritual. So you could say there's kind of as you evolve spiritually, you become more concerned about others than yourself. And the reason is because you're feeling their suffering. Because let's say I'm suffering. Let's say I was poor, I lived on the street, and somehow or other somebody helped me, I got a job, got an apartment, got back on my feet. Then when I see other people suffering on the street, I naturally want to help them because I know what they're experiencing. But if we never experience that, we just see them and go, oh, that's too bad. I hope something good happens, and we walk by. So you find often some of the most charitable people are the people who are in those situations who got out of it. Like maybe someone's a drug addict, they got out of it, and they want to help. They were sexually abused, they overcame it, they want to help. So it's when you feel the pain of another, then you can help them, and that's where compassion comes from. At least in those who are spiritually advanced, that's where compassion comes from. They feel another's pain. So there's a kind of, materialism is a kind of a narcissistic way of thinking. Isn't it? Me. What do they say? Watch out for number one. Who's number one? Not God, me. Right? The me generation. You have that here? The me generation?
Yeah.
I'm part of the me generation. It's all about me. And that's why there's so much divorce, because it's about me. And that doesn't work. So, we should cultivate compassion, empathy, and if we evolve spiritually, it will also manifest. Because as your heart becomes soft, you don't want to see people suffer. And, there's a lot of people in the world who will exploit other people. And the other people will suffer and they will benefit. And that doesn't make them feel bad. That's what materialism does. We don't call it narcissism, we call it being hard-hearted. So the heart's not feeling anything, it's just hard. It's just feeling for what it wants for itself.
Yeah. Stoicism also.
Yeah, I can do it myself.
Stoicism.
Yeah. It's just, so many varieties of me doing it and me doing what I want, how I want, without consideration of others. In previous times when people lived in communities, everyone first thought was community, not themselves. It's just how you were raised. You're raised thinking, okay, what are you going to contribute to the community when you grow up? That's how you're raised. Now we're raised like, what are you going to do when you grow up? What do you want to do? It's what happened to the community? No, what do you want to do? Where do you want to live? What job do you want? How much money you want to make? Etc. Isn't it? But it didn't used to be that way. It used to be like, how will you contribute to the community? How will you make your community better? Interesting, isn't it? Yes? Yes. So there's kind of a built-in narcissistic mentality to materialism, where the focus is ourself or our family. And, you know, if other people are not doing well, some people just don't even care. Too bad, their karma. What can I do? You know? And I'll just keep accumulating what I want to accumulate and doing what I want to do. And there are people who are totally the opposite, who cannot stand to see people suffering, and they sacrifice their life to eliminate people's suffering. And that's what spiritual people do, if they're actually spiritual. They sacrifice their life to relieve other people's suffering. That's what spiritual life means. And material life means you sacrifice your life to make yourself happy. Right? Yes? Not a very worthy goal, is it? This little body, it occupies 3 meters and 1.5 meters wide, weighs, 50, 60 kgs, and your whole existence is dedicated to making this little thing happy. And it's very interesting when you think about it, isn't it? If you're ever like fixated on getting something or doing something you shouldn't do, just throw that thought in your mind. Right now, this little box that I'm carrying around, the soul is carrying around, is beeping, 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 do this, do that, you need this and that. It's just a little box. There's 8 billion other little boxes, and there's a big universe out there. And right now, my consciousness is fixed on what this mind is beeping that you need. It's a very narrow position, isn't it? Yes.
Question.
Yeah.
What to do when in your direct environment people are really talking bad
About you or just bad?
about
Everybody.
Srila Prabhupada?
Oh. What
That
is it?
Srila Prabhupada is making up the rules to give us you have to do this and that and that.
They don't want to follow the rules.
Exactly, not at all. And I'm following, so I'm preaching. I try to make them follow. They say, see. And the only thing I need
Nobody can follow the rules? Is that what they say?
Yeah, actually, they say that they made it up.
Prabhupada made it up?
Yes, and when people say that, I really need to run away. Otherwise, I will get very angry because he's talking about Prabhupada.
The honest, yeah,
So
that's
what?
true.
How to keep myself in how to say?
Get new friends. It's like you have a friend. Every time you see your friend just criticize your mother. Why would you want to have a friend?
No. The point is, I'm not talking about a distant person. I'm talking about.
You're not married to them, are you?
Yeah.
I don't know if I could speak about that, but
You can, please.
I can speak philosophically about it.
Please, yes.
There's a
I have 2 children with her, so
okay. So
I cannot say just.
well, I don't know if it's going to help you, but let's just start somewhere. A more philosophical look at it. If a spiritual master, like Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, gives an instruction, someone who's a genuine guru gives an instruction, I may not be able to follow it, but to deny the instruction because I can't follow it, that's not right. To say, okay, this instruction is good, I'm not yet able to follow it, it's my defect, it's not his defect. So they have a saying in India, maybe outside of India, give the dog a bad name and hang it. So why did you kill that dog? Oh, he has rabies and he bites people. That allows you to kill the dog. So it's like, oh, Srila Prabhupada, this and that. Now I don't have to follow. Give him a bad name, and now I'm free from the restrictions he's placing upon me or suggesting that would help me. So that's irresponsible, right? And that's a lot of times when a person is critical, they'll say something like, you deserve to be criticized, but you did all these bad things. In other words, they're not taking responsibility for it. And that doesn't help anybody. But if I take responsibility and say, I know these instructions are good, but I'm not able to follow them yet, then at least there's hope that maybe someday she'll follow, because she hasn't rejected the instruction. So this is a very important point. And Prabhupada talks about in the Gita, he said sometimes you can't follow an instruction, but as long as you don't reject the validity of instruction, then there's hope. So someday you'll follow, because I know it's right, I'm just not there yet. And I think for many of us who have become devotees or are becoming devotees, there were so many things we couldn't do, but we knew these are things I'd like to do, I just can't do it now. I see other devotees doing them, I can see it's good for them. So that's, Prabhupada he's representing a line of teachers, he's not making anything up. So like sometimes I may be teaching something, and then someone who doesn't know about Krishna consciousness will challenge me. And all I will say is, what I'm doing is teaching Bhagavad Gita. It's fine if you don't accept it, but my service to this group of people here is to teach them what's in the Bhagavad Gita. If you disagree, okay, that's your prerogative, but my duty is to represent those teachings as I was given. And that's all Prabhupada's doing. So if you don't like it, okay, that's fine.
And that is my question. How can I tolerate the fact that she is making offenses to Srila Prabhupada and this and that? I mean, I have to deal with her because I have 2 children with her.
Yeah.
See?
I have to meet her to tell you.
Oh, please. If I could arrange that, it would
It's
be
so hard for me to talk about how to deal with someone I've never met.
because I'm not sure how to keep on tolerating.
Maybe she's not as bad as you think.
No, she is not. She's not a bad person. I mean, we go to Radha dish and everything is okay. But when I'm speaking about Ekadashi, she says, hey, what is this Ekadashi? You know?
Maybe you just have to tell her what I said. You know, it's like, if you can't follow it, it's fine.
Okay.
But don't belittle the instruction because you don't understand it or can't follow it.
Mm-hmm.
Just say, just accept that these are traditions that people have followed and benefited from. But if you can't do it, it's fine. Okay. I'm not going to force you to do
that's
it.
That's a good one, thank you.
But don't minimize the messenger.
No.
Because you don't like the message. The glory of the messenger is that he's giving you a message preserved from ancient times.
Yes.
And it works. And if you ever follow it, you'll see it works. But if you can't follow it, that's okay.
I see it works.
But then, just acknowledge the defect is not in the instruction. I don't see the need for it. Okay, you don't see the need for it, that's fine. Doesn't mean the instruction's wrong. Then it'll be okay.
I should just accept it.
But sometimes we want to minimize the instruction because we can't follow it and it makes us feel good. Because if we can't follow, maybe we feel bad because it's a good instruction.
Mm-hmm.
So that may be part of it. She'll feel bad if she acknowledges, I'm not following something good.
Yeah.
So it may be hard for her, I don't know.
Yeah, true.
So if you could get her to the point, say, if we acknowledge that Prabhupada is pure devotee, giving a pure instruction, but I'm not able to follow it, but at least if I can at least appreciate the instruction, that's helpful. Because someday, maybe, because I appreciate it, it'll dawn on me that it would be good to follow it. But if I just write it off, I'll never follow it. Another thing that Prabhupada said, I don't know if you want to tell her, he said that if you, let's look at what we know. So we all know something, and we all don't know something. And what we don't know is a lot more than what we do know, because of our natural limitations. We don't know what's going on outside. We kind of know people are walking around riding their bikes, but exactly who is and what they're wearing, we can't know that. And maybe a rare person, but most people can't. And then we're talking about things which are beyond even what's outside, transcendental, the soul, God. And so if we just take a humble position and admit our limitations, and then understand there are teachers who are representing a tradition which transcends our limitations, and that what he knows is far deeper and more vast than what I could ever know, then we're okay. If we can't follow, at least we can accept that what he knows is better. So that's an important principle in coming to spiritual life. For example, let's say I'm trying to learn piano, right? And you're like really good at piano and you teach piano. And so I show you what I can play, and you say, you see me playing, and you say, how long have you been playing? And I say 10 years. And you say, 10 years, you should be able to play better than that. And I say, this is the best I can do. And you say, because you don't have a teacher. You know, this is your intuition. You just taught yourself piano. You're not going to, you could play another 10 years, you'll get a little better. But if you give me a year, you're going to play really well. You'll be able to do things you could never do on your own. And so life is like that. Look at your life. Look at what you've accomplished. Look at what you're able to control, not control. Look at your level of happiness, spiritual advancement. This is all an indication of what you did on your own. Now, if you get a teacher, he can take you beyond. He can teach you what you can't understand. He can help you control yourself. So that's the idea. So we have to understand that. We have limitations. So what I know has limitations. I'm a limited being. You're a limited being. But if I have the honor and privilege of hearing from someone whose consciousness is in a different place, then I can learn more. And so the saying is, on your own, just the evaluation is, on your own, how far did you get? How far did I get? Look at your life. That's how far you got. Right? But the interesting thing about this is we've had many lives. And this is another life we had. And we don't have to take a physical body. If we're pure, we won't take a physical body. So then we have to look at it and say, this is as far as I've gotten. And I've been in this world for millions of lifetimes. And as far as I've got is another body. On my own, I couldn't get liberated. I couldn't get beyond this body. So when someone's saying, well, I don't need to hear anybody, and say, that's all right, but look where that got you. Got you another body amongst the millions of bodies you've had. And so you're just, if you say, I don't want to hear anybody, all right, that's fine. You'll just get another body and play the same game over and try to find happiness and enlightenment and hit the wall. And maybe your next life, you'll know a few things more. You'll achieve a little better karma. But there's still a wall that you can't go beyond unless you hear from a higher authority. So that's the reflection, This is as far as I got. Another body. Welcome. Congratulations. You didn't do better than another body amongst millions of bodies you've had for millions of lifetimes. Because unless you take a guru and get higher knowledge, that's what you get. You get another body, another mind, basically doing the same thing. Because we get the same mind in the next life, so we basically do the same thing. Kind of bad news, huh? But it's a powerful point, isn't it? You look at your life, and that's like as far as you got. And then when you take a guru, all of a sudden it's like the rocket ship, not an airplane. You just all of a sudden you know things and you realize things and you have practices you never had before, and your ability to be a better person and control yourself and all these amazing qualities start developing because of him. So that's important. And that's our experience, at least my experience. My life drastically changed when I adopted the process of bhakti and accepted Prabhupada as my teacher, not as my guru. But I learned so much from him. So I read the Bhagavad Gita. It was I read it twice in 10 weeks. It was in where I went to university. The semesters were 10 weeks. And after I read Bhagavad Gita, I used to tell everybody, I said, I learned more reading Bhagavad Gita than I learned in the previous 13 years, 14 years of my education. I honestly felt like that. None of the things in Bhagavad Gita were taught to me. And these were things that were really important. So, what was taught in Bhagavad Gita were not things that I could understand. I had a glimpse, some idea, but the depth of the teaching of the Gita, I couldn't understand. So I just blasted through the wall completely. I was in another universe. Yes?
I have a simple question.
Okay.
They say if there is God, he has to be good.
God has to be good, yeah.
Why?
Why does he have to be good?
Why is it automatic like that?
Well, let's look at it another way. he's actually transcendental to good and bad. He's not part of the duality of this good and bad. So when you reach a spiritual realm, there really is no good and bad. It's just bliss and love and like that. So in that sense, even saying God is good is wrong, because he's beyond good. But in the spiritual realm, there's no bad as we know it. There's no dishonesty and cheating and contaminated minds and hearts and exploitation. It doesn't exist there. So that's his realm. That's where he lives. Therefore, there can't be any of the stuff that goes on down here, up there. The other, well, if you want another answer, I'll give you another one. If there's any good in the world and he's the creator, then it has to come from him. There can't be things here that he didn't create because he's the source. So if I'm good or you're good or somebody's good, it had to come from him. And then, of course, the next question is, well, if he's good, how's there bad? And Srila Prabhupada, my spiritual master, said, it's kind of like, I can do everything for your life to be good, but you can go and mess it up, right? I can put you on the right track and then you just go off it. So he said, the bad is when we turn our back to God and don't do what he wants, and we create the bad. So it's not that he created it, it's like you create shadows. If you stand a certain way, there'll be a shadow. But you need the sun to create the shadow, but in the sun there's no shadow. So we created. So he said when we live a godless life, then it causes suffering. So indirectly it came from God, but not directly. So darkness is put your back to the sun, there's shade. But I like the first answer better, because the spiritual realm it has bad, but the bad is good, because it's beyond good and bad. So everything in the spiritual realm is nourishing spiritually. Everything is bringing us closer to God or Krishna. So if something is apparently bad, it's actually bringing us closer. So sometimes Krishna will do some bad things, so-called, by our standards. But what he's doing is bringing his devotees closer to him, so the love is increasing. So it looks bad, but there's nothing bad about it. From our perspective, it looks bad. But what he's doing is just, like sometimes he steals. He steals butter. He goes to the neighbors and he steals butter. Stealing is bad. One of the 10 Commandments. And the neighbors come to Krishna's mother and they complain. But when they see Krishna in his mother's house, he's so beautiful, they stop complaining. They're actually happy he came and stole the butter. So Krishna's doing it to just create the love, but he's stealing, which is bad. But in that realm, nothing is bad, even if it's bad, because there's no bad there. Bad exists here. Yes?
I had a realization that we create our. I heard many times that we create our own suffering.
Yes.
I couldn't accept it for a long time, and I had a realization that it's real. That's true. And I had a few calamities this year, real bad. But I could see that it was good.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the midst of the whole thing of what's happening, I could see it was for the good. I didn't know where I got this power from, and that I could see it.
Mm-hmm.
And it changed my life in a way that's really good. Only not for me, it was only for my son, for everybody.
That's nice.
And then again, my realization was more empowering, more strong.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to say about that is that I even see all my life is good, I can see the good, but it's also very, I live in the Netherlands, so I should be like more. I'm poor, I'm really poor. But I think for me it's the best situation that because if I have more, I can't handle more. I have to live on the edge. If I'm on the edge, then because I'm working also with people who have a lot of problems, and when I'm with them, I feel more the feeling that I need to change, you know. I need this contrast. I need to feel the modes of nature, you know, the tamas. I have to feel that in order to, because I am too too comfortable. I just forget every time. For me, to be comfortable is not good. But for me, not to be comfortable is like I feel fresh because I have to. So I don't even care anymore if I get more money or better. I don't care, but I really do care for that it doesn't get worse. And I have this faith that's not gonna get worse because I am spiritually connected, you know. And I feel the strength, you know, the spiritual strength. I feel it all the time. But I've changed a lot, you know, the last 3 months. It's like totally different.
That's nice. Thank
But
you.
not because it was everything was so beautiful, it's because of these calamities.
Yeah. Well, most people don't change when it's good. They change when it's bad.
Yeah, but it's interesting.
You know, there's a saying. People don't change when they see the light. They change when they feel the heat. You see the light and it's like, yeah, that's nice. You feel the heat like, I have to change or I'll go crazy.
Yeah.
That's good.
But it's refreshing.
Mm-hmm. I think it's true for all of us to one degree or another. Some of us learn easier than others. So some of us need to be beaten a little harder. But that's Krishna's love. Comes in the form of a little slap. And sometimes you don't understand in the moment, but later you understand. And when you finally meet him and say, why did you slap me like that? And he said, I slapped you right back to me. If I didn't slap you, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. You'd be down there, you know, doing something else.
Can I say something?
No, you said enough. Thank you. Give people a chance to ask questions. Anyone else want to ask? The ladies from Germany want to ask?
I understand.
She understands by experience.
Yes, by experience, not by question.
The question of God being good, or all good, or why does he have to be good? It's an interesting question because we were talking about duality, and duality exists in the material world. But beyond this world, in the transcendental realm, there's no duality. So there, everything is blissful, eternal, and cognizant, knowledgeable. Excuse me. And here the nature is, if it goes up, it comes down, right? If it gets bad, it gets better, it gets better, it gets worse. And in that realm, it just gets better. And there's no bad. It's already ecstatic, blissful, and it just keeps getting better and better eternally. Meditate on that for a while and see if that doesn't explode your head. Something that, a realm in which there's no suffering, there's only bliss, eternity, and knowledge, and it keeps getting better. What do you think of that? Sound good? You want to go there? Test it out? And some people, when they hear that, they say, oh, that sounds boring. It's always good, it's boring. Yeah, right. You're on vacation, you're having a really great time, you go, I think I'm going to cut my vacation close just to make sure it doesn't get boring. I'm going to cut it short to make sure it doesn't get boring. Nobody does that. Right? It's not. But if we think it's boring, it's because we're looking at it materially. Yeah, maybe materially eventually it could get boring if something's like good all the time. You need a little, little pain to appreciate the good. But spiritually, it's not like that. It's transcendentally blissful. It's different from happiness. It's not happiness. If someone says to me, are you happy? I say, no, I'm not happy, I'm ecstatic. Because happy just means are your senses satisfied? You have a bunch of money in the bank, your kid's good, you have a good job, or you have prestige, you get vacations a couple times a year. That's happy. Right? So I said, no, I'm not happy. I don't get my happiness from those things. I'm ecstatic. So that's the idea, Are you happy? No, not at all. Bliss is a different thing than happiness. You understand? That spiritual realm, it's not, you can't compare it with the material realm. And what would be good here? It doesn't even what would be good here is not even considered there because it doesn't exist. It's not good, bad, it's ecstatic. That's what it's composed. The very nature of that existence is blissful. So when we talk about going beyond duality, we're going into a realm where there's only one nature. It's just blissful. And it's satisfying. It's not like I wouldn't like it. No, it's exactly where we belong. Yes?
Does it mean you can't be blissful here? Or do you have to... Can you only experience it when you...
No, you can. But you can experience it here. But your consciousness won't be here. That's why you experience it. Your consciousness is now not absorbed in the material. So, sometimes it's said that when a person is spiritually evolved, they don't care if they live in the spiritual or the material realm. And the reason is because even though their body is physically here, consciousness is not here. So was it said, do you want to be liberated? Why don't you care to be liberated? Because I already am. Even though I have a physical body, I'm liberated from identifying with the body and the pains and pleasures of the body. And my consciousness is not absorbed in this world. So the body's not a limitation. It just might look like I'm in this world, but I'm not. And that same experience that I would have if I went physically to the spiritual world, I have here because my consciousness is there. So, not easy, but that's where you end up. If you practice spiritual life, you end up there. Even when we're chanting, you can transcend. A lot of times we experience that. You come here with problems and then you start chanting and you forget that you had the problem. And you leave, you can't remember what they were. Because you transcended them. Right? You have that experience?
Well, I don't know. Sometimes, it's like really difficult because you are in the material world.
Yes.
So you are distracted by
Yes.
for example, worry and stress and everything.
Yes, of course.
So you're doing every day the same thing, but you do spend some time for your spiritual advancement, but you can really, you don't feel like, oh wow, I'm in bliss.
Yeah.
Not at all.
You can, though, if you put more time into your spiritual practice and do it time both every day and then over a longer period of time, gradually you'll feel more and more of that. Because it's there, it's within you. It's like this light is inside of us. And as we evolve spiritually, a little more of that light is peeping through. We're just opening the curtain, so we're getting a little bit. So I feel a little bit of it, but whatever little you feel, it's just a sign there's more there. So as you evolve spiritually, then it gets better. You become more transcendental. It's more easy. And you become less affected. And like when I look at spiritual life and I look at the material world, I think the greatest gift I could give myself is spiritual life, because then I won't be so affected by what's in this world. And if I don't have that as my tool to defend myself from all the stuff that's coming to me, I'm kind of like a sitting duck. I'm just, something's going to come and hit me and shoot me, and I'm going to become upset. Whereas if I'm Krishna conscious, when it shoots me, then I can deal with it. I say, what amazing gift is that? That you can deal with all this stuff and not be thrown into depression or upset or anger or hatred or resentment or anything. You're just gliding, and it's just bouncing off you. So, in my own life and my own analysis, I always felt that what could be more important, what could be a greater gift to myself than to come to that level of consciousness, if it's possible, and it is possible. That's the good news. But it takes practice, not going to happen overnight. And the thing is, like you said, it's not easy, and that's true. But I always think it may not be easy, but look what it is. If you get it, that's amazing. So for me, I thought, well, nothing's really that easy. Anything great's not easy, so why not go for that not easy thing rather than some other not easy thing that is not going to give me that, is going to end when my life ends. So, to be materially very successful is not easy, but at the end, you don't have anything internally, you only have the external, or primarily the external. This, you have something, and then your end of your life, when you're ready to go, you're in a very sane state of mind, a very peaceful state of mind. You can deal with it. Or, for example, like Arjuna, he was supposed to fight, and Krishna shows him who he's going to fight, and then he sees his relatives. And he says, how can I fight my relatives? So he became very depressed. And Krishna said, if you're actually wise, if you're actually enlightened, if you have wisdom, you understand that you can't kill them. Only the body does, and you won't be depressed. And so, what kind of great gift is that someone very near and dear to you leaves their body and you can deal with it? That's amazing, right? Most people can't. It can haunt you for years, right? Grieving and so on. And although life is difficult, and even for those who are practicing Krishna consciousness, sometimes it's difficult. But I always tell them, but look, you have the tools to deal with it. That's the advantage. Externally, it may be the same. I stub my toe, you stub your toe, she stubs your toe. It all hurts. But one is Krishna conscious, will be more tolerant, will be able to understand it. Maybe it's some karmic thing and so forth. So I think that's the great gift that we have. And so if we cultivate that gift, then our lives are so much better. Even though materially they may not be better. But now I can deal with all this stuff, Somebody, competes with me at work, tries to take my position. It doesn't bother me anymore. I don't live on that level. I'm not going to play those games. Okay, take it, whatever. It doesn't matter. And everyone's saying, you should be upset. And I go, yeah, I know I should be upset, but I'm not. So should I get upset now? And I'm not? Of course not. I'm happy not to be upset. Let them take it. Krishna will take care of me. That's a very beautiful way to live. Very detached, right? Very special way. So what's more valuable than that? Isn't it? Okay, here's the choice. €1 million and very low consciousness, or no euros and that consciousness. I think we'd all take that consciousness. Wouldn't we? Hopefully. Before you make a decision, I'll show you the pictures of all the rich and famous people who committed suicide, just to make sure you know what consciousness to take. Yes?
I like that both because I like to donate a temple for Amsterdam.
Yeah.
A really big temple.
Yeah.
Both
Well, maybe if you got the money and donated it, then you would get the consciousness after you made the donation. But yeah, that's good, yeah. So all of you, when your Uncle Harry dies and gives you millions of euros, you can help us build a new temple. Yes? Yes?
Yes, since I live quasi near the temple, in the temple nearly,
Yes.
it's a complete change for me that I feel really overloaded with spiritual things. We have so much scholars coming, and also in the temple we are studying every day. It's ecstatic, but I just felt now at the realization I'm just scratching on the surface of such a big, huge experience and knowledge, and I feel so unqualified, and I have really think my brain cannot develop much more and digest all, and I feel somehow helpless, but it's, on the other side it's ecstatic. So,
feel helpless in processing everything you're learning or realizing?
And speaking about it, and they asked me to give classes, and I
feel not ready from her.
No, I feel not ready. I think my brain is
well,
not
Prabhupada said, just speak your realization, whatever you know. Once you start speaking, you realize you know more than you actually do. And when you start speaking, a lot of times the confusion gets cleared because you're forced to make sense of it. And it's all a gift. isn't it? Okay, I'll encourage you. When I was 19, I was speaking to university classes. I'd been a devotee less than a year. But I love to speak about Krishna, so I just thought, whatever I know is about this is more than they know. So whatever I say, it'll help them. And even if I can't speak so articulately about so many things, at least I can speak about something that will help them. And so that's the mood. It's more the mood of how can I help them than what about me? How will I look or how will I do it? That's how a teacher thinks. They think of their students. They don't think so much of themselves. Okay, what can I give my students? Does that make better sense? Yeah.
Everyone is more learned there.
But there's something you know that they don't. Some realization you have that they may not have had. Pray for that. What can I offer them? Yeah. Yes.
It's also very hard because we also can't say that I'm a fully spiritualized person. But in the material world, we're meeting so many different kinds of people from so many different walks of life. And when you try to say something in a spiritual sense, they look at you like you're stupid, like it's like you're bored or something.
Yeah, that's a compliment. Because if they think you're smart, that means you're a materialist like them. So if they think you're stupid, that means you're different from them. So that's a compliment.
The other point is, who am I to judge it? But it's like how can you make statements like that?
If you're stupid, you can make statements like that. When someone says you're stupid, always the question is, who's stupid? The person you said was stupid, or the person saying you're stupid? Materialistic people are people who don't understand Krishna consciousness. May not even be materialistic. They don't understand. Probably are not taking the time to understand. So they're judging you based on a few things you said or did, right? So we understand that. Why be bothered by some foolish person? It's like, okay, he doesn't understand, whatever. But I understand it's good. Shishi Gornikai ki. The real thing is our own faith. People may think we're crazy, but like one time Prabhupada said, they think we're crazy, but we know they're crazy. That's the difference.
They think they're crazy and we think they're crazy and they think we are crazy.
Yeah, but the difference is we know they're crazy.
Yeah.
They just think we're crazy.
That's the way I always console myself.
Yeah. I wouldn't tell somebody, you think I'm crazy, but I know you're crazy. But Krishna outlines proper behavior in the Gita and in Bhagavatam everywhere. Proper behavior is outlined. So we know what is proper and is improper. So that's why we can say, I know you're crazy. But we can also say, I was also crazy. I was also like you. Not that I'm better than you. I'm just fortunate to have met a spiritual master who's given me this knowledge. But I was like you before. I'm not special. So, but I was giving a talk to the youth today, and I think I was telling them today that when I was young, we were hippies. So that was a new phenomenon, so many people thought we were crazy. But we always felt that as a compliment. Because basically they were just saying, crazy means you're different. Crazy means, it doesn't mean it's crazy, it just means it's out of my norm. So it becomes crazy or bizarre, strange. Strange is not a value judgment, it just means it's different for you. And so when people said you're crazy or strange or different, we always took that as a compliment because we're trying to be different. We didn't want to be materialistic, so we were dressing differently, speaking differently, thinking differently. And so that was like just music to our ears. You're really crazy. Thank you. I'm trying to be different, so you see it as crazy. But at least for me, it was like reassuring that I'm on the right path, that ordinary people think I'm weird. That's good. And like, if they said you're a normal, nice young boy, I'd go, oh God, my life is ruined. Normal, young, nice boy. I don't want to do that. You know, every normal, young, nice boy is doing a lot of normal, nice things that I don't want to do. So that's the idea. So it's a compliment. So if anyone says you're crazy, just say thank you. I take that as a compliment.
Our ego is too big, it makes us feel bad.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it is the part, that's
Yeah, of course.
reality, yeah.
Of course. But we can get over that ego eventually. See, the thing is, if you're dealing with people who are not very spiritually conscious, or they have a lot of prejudice or hatred or envy and so forth, if we don't know how to deal with them properly, they'll bring us down, because then we'll want to engage. So it's kind of like, you know, in boxing, there are rules. You have to hit from the waist up. You can't hit below the waist, right? So if someone hits below the waist, you feel like hitting him below the waist, you know. But you can't do that. It's, you know, he made the mistake. He'll lose the match. But if you go do it also, then you're not going to win. So it's a little bit like that. Like people hit below because they don't know how to have a conversation, like a philosophical, spiritual conversation. So they say something stupid, and they hit below the belt. So the challenge for us is not hit back below the belt, because they'll bring us down to their level, and then it's like they beat us. They get angry at us, we get angry at them. Oh, we lost. So I see those people as, in a sense, blessings, because when those things happen, then I think Krishna's saying to me, okay, what are you going to do now? You going to go down to their level, or are you going to come up to my level? And that's always the choice, right? Okay, this person mistreated me. I can get angry, I can get resentful, whatever, jealous, envious. Or I can see it another way. And we need those kinds of people, because they're the ones who are like the gauges. Okay, what are you going to do now? I just told you you're stupid or you're crazy. What are you going to do now? It's a gauge. And then we gauge our response. And then we scream at them. I go, oh, I failed. Red light, beep, beep, beep. You failed, right? Or I just said, thank you. Thank you for pointing out my craziness. Have a good day. Green light, I did good. I didn't come down to their level. So we need those people as tests, because if we don't have them, we don't know how we're doing, right? Isn't it? So if you can see those people as blessings just to help you, then it's much easier. And so this is a challenge. Those kinds of people can easily bring us down, right, to their level. Did you have this nursery rhyme when you were a young girl? Sticks and stones can break my bones, but names can never hurt me. You had something like that? Yeah, so that's what it is. So, you know, I don't know if girls do that, but the boys like to tease boys to get them upset. That's like fun when you're a little boy. You know? So that was the defense. That was the boy's defense. You can call me bad names, but I'm not going to become unhappy because of these names. I'm not going to allow it to hurt me. So I think that's applicable to adults also. Isn't it? You agree? I'm not saying any of this is easy, but in my own life, I always look at it, and when I look at this, I know it's not easy, but I know it's harder to not do it, because the result of not doing it is so much worse. And every time I don't do it, it's like I got to pick myself up off the ground, because I just allow myself to fall. So it's harder ultimately to be bad, although in the beginning it's easier, but in the long run it's harder to be bad. In the beginning it's harder to be good, in the long run it's easier. Right? So that's given me a lot of inspiration to be better even when it's hard, because, you know, if you do the hard stuff first, it lasts. You get a better result. Yes? You have that? No. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I have a question about what you said about community.
Yes.
That in some communities or simple communities, or I didn't exactly got what you said. Maybe in the past it was like this, like in a community.
Oh yeah, you were contributing, yeah.
Contributes to the whole.
Yeah.
But is it then influence of Kali Yuga. That's now, if you look, there's so much things that people need, like really need, like food and other things to survive or even weeks to come. And if you compare it to the very rich people, or even all the money, couldn't, for my feeling, cannot save all those people who are suffering.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there is like an imbalance. Is this because of Kali Yuga, or because the people should suffer because they have to find the light or some?
Well, I would say materialism is the cause, and materialism is a symptom of Kali Yuga. And because materialism, you know, let's say you pay a farmer to throw grains in the ocean. Well, there is enough food, or, you know, restaurants throw away so much food. You know, somebody could organize that, or Africa, Prabhupada said you could grow enough food to feed the whole world just in Africa. So when people become too selfish, self-centered, and their hearts become hard, then you start getting these problems where millions of people suffer, and take a plane an hour away, and millions of people are living these extremely decadent lives. So my understanding of ancient times, at least Vedic times, is even the wealthy people didn't live a very opulent life. Things that were opulent were the temples. Like, that's where the money went.
I thought also the amount of cows that you have.
Cows?
The amount of cows that you have. Of course,
Yeah, but that's
more milk
well.
than that you can drink yourself.
Yeah. Where Prabhupada said, grow your own food, have your own cows. If there's extra, you can sell, distribute. But it's just if you see where the world's come to, it's pretty obvious that materialism is like the force behind this economy and what's driving the technology. And like, we need tons of money, artificial so-called money, to push this technology. And technology is just, it's out of control. It's like it's considered it's like going to solve all their problems while it's creating so many more. So my understanding is this materialism is, you know, the cause of the problem. Like, there's plenty of food. The earth can produce so much. We have so much food. And no one has to be poor. Aside from the fact that if we do yajna, sacrifice and so forth, the earth will produce more. That's a whole other discussion. That's beyond what society today can even understand. You know, the higher karmic effects of worshiping God, doing yajna, chanting, and how that affects the planet, what it can produce. So materialism is it's an insidious disease, and innocent people's lives are being wasted because of it, and they're losing faith in God and spirituality because of it, and putting their faith in material things and material happiness, in shopping, you know, prestige, and thinking that you can buy happiness just by having more stuff, and dedicating their whole lives to working to accumulate wealth, to be somebody, or have so many things, and then they die in ignorance, and that's where society is going. And so when Prabhupada came to preach, he would often talk about this, and he said, you have beautiful cities and beautiful roads and all this, but your lives are completely wasted. And when you die, you have no idea where you're going. You could go back to Krishna, you could go back to God in this lifetime, and you're just building kingdoms, castles in the sand. And he preached it, you know, that was like such a simple message, but such a necessary message in a materialistic culture, right? And when you think of it, it's like, yeah, of course. What do you take with you? Nothing. A simple message. But that's what he was hammering all the time. We needed to hear it. The hippies understood it, but they didn't understand the goal. They understood the one side, we're wasting time and energy just working for some money, then it's not making people happy, but we didn't know the other side. that there was back to Godhead. So the hippie movement kind of phased out because they didn't have a goal. They only had part of the truth.
But then it would mean like what you said, like what she said, money for a temple.
Yeah.
But also money for a farm.
Yeah, okay, well, okay, we're gonna, when she gets her $1 million, she's gonna buy a temple and a farm. When are you gonna get it? You have any idea?
Krishna's gonna will it.
Yeah. If you all want it, if all of you want it and pray for it, it'll happen. You want to hear an interesting story? This is so, you're going to love this story. So it's so Krishna in control story. So there's a city just south of Los Angeles called Laguna Beach. It's obviously a beach town. It's a one of the most beautiful places in America. I mean, in California, and the mountains come to the ocean, and a lot of cliffs over the ocean. And the devotees are renting a house, and it was right across from the ocean on a cliff. And you look out the window and you see the ocean. And it's just the house, the highway, and then house and beach. So literally, within a minute, you're at the beach. And they had this for years. And Laguna Beach, Prabhupada said, is a city where fallen yogis take birth. There's so many people became devotees in that city, and that's why we had a temple there. Because it was so close to LA. You think, well, LA is such a big city and a big temple. Why do you need a temple in a small place? I think Laguna Beach might be, 30,000 people. But so many people interested in spiritual life either came there or took birth there or would spend time there or live there. So one fine day, the owner of the house, and this is all the men live there, all the women, the deities are there, the kitchen, this is where the temple has been, tells the devotees, I'm selling this house. So if you want to get this house, I need a down payment of $20,000 in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. That was like 1975 or 6. Our movement didn't have any money like that. That was a lot of money in those days. So a few days before, they would be templeless with deities and no place to go. In the hundi was a little bag of dollars. Guess how many? Take a wild guess how many dollars were in the hundi? 20,000. Hare Krishna. So sometimes it happens like that. As Prabhupada said, these things are going on. So if the desire is there and we're able to work well together, and we want to seriously do something to help people, then Krishna will provide. He's just waiting for us. There's no problem for him to provide. He's waiting for us, right? Are you all ready? So one time, a devotee was asking Prabhupada, he said, there's so many big churches and religious organizations that have so much facility, so much money. And in those days, the average temple wasn't even as big as this. It was just a little house with a few devotees. And we would always think, this movement is so important. Why is it that we have all these small buildings? And Christianity, which is basically was failing the people to really give them what they wanted, had so many big churches. And so the devotee said to Prabhupada, why Krishna won't give us everything? And Prabhupada said, if Krishna gave you everything, what would you do? And Prabhupada answered the question. He said, you'd simply sleep. In other words, you're not ready for it. Okay, business finished. Let's go to sleep. When we get up, what do we do now? Eat. After we eat, what do we do? Clean the pots, go back to sleep. That was Prabhupada's point. But as you become ready, then Krishna gives. That's it. Is that okay? Anything else? Yes?
In a situation, you left material life.
Yes.
You've lost taste for material life. And you're focusing and going for material life. But you lost the taste for material life.
Yes.
But you don't get
The taste for spiritual.
taste for spiritual life.
What do you do?
What do I do?
That's the question. What to do?
What to do, yes.
Yeah. Eat more prasadam. And you'll get a taste for spiritual life. Associate more with devotees. Improve the quality of your bhakti, like improve the quality of your chanting. Read more. All the things that will bring about happiness in Krishna consciousness, do more of it. And what can really make a difference, this is a good question for all of you, I'm glad you asked. What can make a huge difference when you're saying like, well, I don't want material life, but I'm not fully experiencing spiritual life. Find a service you really like doing. That can really make a huge difference. Sometimes devotees say, I'm not happy. And I'm saying, are you doing what you really like to do? And they'll say, no. And as soon as they find a service that they really like doing, they're so much happier. So that could be part of it. Everything I said is good, The quality of your chanting, the time you spend reading, the quality, the time you spend with devotees, it's all important. But if you can find a service that you can do for Krishna, for the temple, or your own project, whatever it is, that you really like, it makes a huge difference. You'll get so inspired. And that will inspire your chanting. When you're inspired in your service, your chanting gets better. So this is really, really important. You can have good sadhana. Everything can be good, but if you don't have a service that you can really get yourself into, you still won't feel complete. So it's like synergistic, right? Maybe you have a good diet, but you're missing some vitamin or nutrient, and you don't feel strong. So that's very important for all of you. That's good advice for all of us. If we're feeling like, why am I not feeling the bliss as much as I should? Maybe it's I'm not engaged properly. So it's something to think about, how you could serve. You can discuss with other devotees. Or even sometimes just having a service, doesn't even matter what it is, just having a service is so blissful. Anything. Keep it, Or sometimes devotees say, I'm not happy. I say, well, what are you doing? What do you do when you get home from work? Just go on Facebook. Yeah, I wouldn't be happy either if that's what I did. And I got it's like, what are you doing to, like, watch some movies and what movie? Those is something. Yeah. That's not blissful. So we want to be, when the day's over, we want to have service. Blissful service that we like to do. Or spend time reading and so forth. And you'll notice the difference. Often we say, we're not happy because we're doing things that don't make us happy. Or we're doing things that could make us happy, but we're not doing it in the right way. Or we're not doing enough of them. There's all things to consider. Yes?
And what if it happens otherwise around? Like person very happy with spiritual practice, but
Yes.
doesn't want to go into material world.
Then what? What should they do, or how should they think?
Yeah.
There's a couple of things you can do. Well, if you're younger, the answer is easier because you can just find a temple ashram and live there. But what some people do in your position in life, they spend a lot of time in India because it's very inexpensive. And they can go to a holy place in India and engage fully. The other thing, you didn't like that one either, right? Not that they spend all their time, but they make time every year to spend time in that environment so they can be immersed. The other thing we can do is simplify our life more so that we can have more time. So, the more our lives are complicated, the harder we have to work to pay for everything. So if we can keep it more simple and possibly maybe not work as hard and then save some time. And then eliminate anything that's just a distraction unnecessarily. That's the best we can do until you retire.
Thanks.
And tolerate the material world. But if you're more Krishna conscious, it'll be easier to tolerate it. But I have found, like I was telling, I forgot your name?
Henry.
I was telling Henry, what I found in my life is that if I was doing something I didn't like because that was how I made a living, if I had a project that I was really inspired by, then as soon as I get off work, I would just go into that project. And I almost spent as much time on that project as I would at work. So I didn't really feel so much like I was working. And then the work was more tolerable. Wow, amazing. Lights are good. Lights. So that's something to consider also, because then it may not be such a problem. Yeah, and you'll get more energy. See, the problem is, a lot of times if we're doing something we don't like, it drains us. So when we come home, we're just like, we don't want to do anything. But if you have a service that you really like when you come home, then you'll think, okay, now I have time to do this. You'll actually get energy, even though you've worked all day. Even though you worked at something you don't like, you'll actually have energy to do that, because that's the way inspiration works. If you like what you're doing, that's where your energy comes from, right? And if you don't like what you're doing, you just get tired and want to go to sleep. I had this experience. We used to go out when we were younger devotees, and we weren't going out to talk to people about Krishna. We were going out to collect money, and I didn't like doing that. I liked talking to people. We'd have to go out and collect money. And as soon as they say it's time to go out to collect money, I would start yawning. I swear, as soon as they said, we're going out, so I wasn't inspired to do it. And I'd get in the van and I'd just fall asleep. But if they said, well, we're going to a college, we're going to meet students, and I'd say, yeah, let's go. I wouldn't yawn at all. So it has that effect. So find what you like to do and create the time, and you'll get inspired, energized. Right? Yes. Anyone else? RT. Okay. We're going to start RT. We'll say goodbye to everyone on Facebook. Goodbye to you all. And Hare Krishna, and have RT. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai. His Grace Mahatma Prabhu.